Hello, and welcome to my look at the Root tabletop role-playing game. My name is Corey Hickson, and I wanted to take a look into this game. We're going to be looking at the Quick Start PDF that's available on Drive-Thru RPG right now for free, so anyone is available to go check this out. This is brought to us by Magpie Games. They make some pretty cool games. We recently reviewed Bluebeard's Bride, I think, was the last one. That one was pretty intense. I'm expecting this one to be a lot less intense compared to that, because this one is about cute animal folk and the ways that they have wars with each other. So it gives me a lot of Red Vault vibes just off the start. So with this review, it looks like we've got about 40 pages of actual PDF. I haven't looked at it before, so we'll just sort of go through and see what's available, see what's here, and take a look. I own and have played the board game. It's relatively fun. I haven't got to play as much as I like. The biggest thing with it is that it's a pretty aggressive game as far as attacking other people. So my group isn't huge into that, so sometimes it doesn't make it to the table for that reason. But I expect this to be totally different. I've seen a little bit of this game played. I do know that it uses the Powered by the Apocalypse system. It was played over on the Legends of Adventures channel when they were playing it for a bit, so I saw some of that. And yeah, otherwise, I really like the art for this game. It's sort of got a nice cutesy but really well done style, and I like how they've laid it out on here. I am curious to see if the factions are a thing, because that was basically the entirety of the board game, is it's all the factions. Yeah, but I guess we can scroll through and see what it's about. Okay, so first we've got our table of contents. It looks like war comes to the woodland. We've got an introduction, some overview, making characters, playing. We've got the moves. Interested to see what's there. Looks like we have a few different sets of moves. We have a chapter on the factions, so that's neat to see. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, equipment, playbooks, arbiter. I'm guessing. Oh, that's probably okay. So those are the different playbooks. Advancement. Section for the Game Master, Map, and War. Awesome. As far as credits, I don't think I recognize any of these names off the top of my head. I'm imagining these are a bunch of people with Magpie Games. Cool. I guess we can get started. Everything that I expect in a table of contents. I'm just curious to jump into it. So, war comes to the woodland. I don't think I'm gonna read this word for word on stream. That doesn't seem productive. Essentially, the story that I know for Root is that the cats own and have control of the forest, and there's a few different alliances. The biggest one is the bird dynasty that exists and is trying to fight the cats that have taken over the forest. And then there's also the woodland beings that are essentially the Robin Hood story of overthrowing and causing riots for the most part, for whoever is in control. And I'm guessing that this mostly just sums up that in a narrative sense. I generally get the impression that the cats are the enemies, but let's go and see if we can find that out without actually reading that. They might say some more later. Okay, so this quick start is a preview of the Root tabletop RPG. Awesome, including 6 playbooks, all the basic moves, some rules. Here you'll find everything you need to start playing. Awesome. They'll be updating these as they work on the final version, so keep that in mind that this is going to be something that they work through. They might make more sense if you're familiar with the Powered by the Apocalypse framework. Yep, so that's cool to see. And then we've got a nice summary here. I like this part. Root the tabletop role-playing game is based on the award-winning Root, a game of woodland might and right board game about conflict and power featuring struggles between cats, birds, mice, rabbits, and foxes. Actually, I'm gonna take a quick second. No, we're fine. Never mind. You're going to be playing as vagabonds, denizens of the woodland who have been cast out of civilized society, whether by their own volition or by exile. You venture throughout the woodland, fulfilling jobs and tipping the scales in the conflict between the factions. Okay, so it seems like you're an independent, which is kind of neat. This game focuses on fun adventures, action, and escapades on the meaningful, lasting backdrop of a woodland and its war. You'll get into big fights and stage cunning heists, and by doing so, you'll earn reputation with different factions, and perhaps even help them to take over clearings. Okay, so it talks a little bit about the woodland here. Talks about the different factions, it looks like. I'll just read this last paragraph because it looks like it sums it up pretty good. Now the Erie dynasties have finally managed to regroup and muster their forces. They're pushing to take their ancestral domain, while the Marquisate stands strong against them. And all the while, the other denizens of the woodland are beginning to stir in new defiant ways. So, sort of what I was expecting, being familiar with the Root multiverse, I guess you could call it. Okay, it looks like they talk a bit about the vagabonds. Not super worried about the lore. It's nice that they have this lore here because if you're not familiar with the setting, this is going to add some nice color to it. I think for the most part we're just going to skip over because I'm interested in the mechanics and stuff and to see some of those pieces. So the players each are going to be using a playbook, and it looks like there's 6 different playbooks here. Interestingly enough, it doesn't look like there's a magic-based one. That's interesting. So there's the arbiter, a powerful warrior. The ranger, makes sense. The scoundrel is a troublemaker, arsonist, destroyer. That sounds fun. Interestingly enough, the scoundrel is distinct from thief, and the thief is a clever and stealthy burglar or pickpocket. A tinker, a technically savvy maker of equipment and machines. A wandering rabble-rouser and trickster who survives on words. Okay, so I'm a little bit curious because I haven't played through the expansions of Root, but I thought there was a cult that used something magic-y. I guess that's not the case, though. Interesting. Okay. One player in your game of Root will take on the responsibility to represent the world of the woodland. The GM will portray all of the other denizens who fill up the story. Okay, so it just talks about who the GM is. And then it talks about the factions. The 2 big ones are the Erie dynasties and the Marquisate. There are other factions that might come into play eventually, but for the sake of the quick start, only those 2 are included. Okay, so it only includes the 2 of them for this. That could be why, this isn't incomplete, or not incomplete, but that is not their finished copy of the game. Okay, and then it talks about the Marquisate and the Erie dynasties some more. So more lore. I think this is cool. I don't really want to go through and read it. Think it's the deer. Yeah, it could be the deer. I don't know off the top of my head. I could go grab the game and look because I think it has all of them in the base game, but this is not the time for that. Playbooks. Okay, so it looks like this is on character creation. So you choose your playbook. Makes sense. You come up with a name, a species, and a look. I like that your species doesn't affect the abilities that you have. That's always something that I feel like just like what's I don't know. There's better stuff that can be done, especially as far as stat boosts. And I'm just referring to what we see in Dungeons and Dragons, where stat boosts come with certain characters, and it's like, well, I feel like there could be something more interesting there. Cool. Okay, so they have that. I'm just going to take a quick peek and see if I have the playbooks available. Okay, I do. Let's see what happens when I open this. Ooh, that opens very weirdly on the screen. You know, I'm going to save that for last. We'll look at the playbooks because then I can adjust the screen and go through that. Okay, what are the stats? There's 5 different stats. Each playbook comes with these 5. There's charm, cunning, finesse, luck, and might. So we have our strength score, we have our dexterous score, we have our smart score, we have our like charming, persuasion-y, personable, and then we have luck. I like that they have luck in here. Luck measures well how lucky you are. Curious to see how that gets used. Luck, I find, is one of those mechanics that tends to get its own special way that it's handled whenever it's brought into a game, but we'll see. Each playbook comes with a predetermined set of stats. You get to add +1 to the stat of your choice, so long as it doesn't raise any stat beyond +2. I like that. You can make up for your negative stat, or you can increase your best stat. The choice is yours. Over the course of the game, you might unlock advancements that will further improve your stats, but the absolute maximum is +2 without a special move, and +3 with a special move. That's neat. I do have a criticism of Dungeon World that you can get your stats to +3, and in a Powered by the Apocalypse game, +3 is game breaking, in my opinion. It means you're going to succeed on pretty much anything, and the struggle there is that you can reach so far for what you're trying to do regardless of the risk, because your odds of succeeding are really, really high. I think it's, let me see, so if you have +3, that means there's 1, 2, 3 numbers that you could fail on. 2 numbers. You'd have to roll a 2 or a 3, and there's a 3 out of 36 chance that you get that. So you're going to succeed on 11 out of 12 of your rolls, which is, you know, you might as well just do whatever. So +3 is Powered by the Apocalypse. I'm not a huge fan of. It sounds like they're limiting that quite a bit, so I like the sound of that. Next, you determine your background, drive, and nature. Does this actually ignore connections for the moment? Okay, so for your background questions, read and answer each question. The answers are there to speed up the process, not act as limiters. Okay, so it seems like this is just a quick way to make your characters. Then choose your drives. The vagabond gets 2 drives at the start of play to describe the circumstances under which you advance. I like that. I was a little bit worried that this was just going to be like flavor, but I really like when these things are connected into session rewards. So if you fulfill the condition of your drive, you can advance immediately. You can only advance once per session per drive. Choose a drive based on what your character wants to do and what you want to see them do. Finally, choose your nature. Your nature refers to your deeper personality type. It's the way you act or relieve stress. Interesting. If you fulfill the condition of your nature, you can clear your entire exhaustion track. That sounds very Blades in the Darky, but also very distinctly different from it. So that's interesting. You can fulfill the condition of your nature any number of times as long as you take the necessary action. Cool. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is, once we finish this character creation section, I'm going to hop over to the playbooks and we can take a peek and see what's going on there. Then you have your move and weapon skills. Next, choose your moves. Each playbook has different moves and gets to choose some, most often 3, to help define its special abilities and advantages. Many moves require you to roll with a particular stat. Play close attention to those and how they connect to your stat line. Then you move on to your weapon skills. Each weapon skill refers to one of the special weapon moves. Okay. For example, to use the weapon move cleave, you have to have both a weapon skill yourself and have a weapon tagged with that skill. Awesome. And then last but not least, it looks like they have a section here on introductions and connections. So let's take a peek at what's going on here. When everyone's done that, explain who you are, why you're a vagabond, what you do, and what your drive is. Answer any questions that Jim or other players ask. After everyone has introduced their characters and you know who the other vagabonds in your band are, you're going to choose connections. Go around in the same order, each player adding one connection at a time. Each player has 2 connections on their character sheet and gets to use both, so go around until each player has set up the 2 connections from their own character sheet. Each connection also comes with a small rules tweak. I like this, by the sounds of it, assuming it works in play. Make sure you read aloud so everyone involved with the connection is aware of it. That's neat. This feels very good, because just having connections is not that interesting, but if they do stuff, I find that adds a lot to it. So I'm gonna hop over to the character sheets here. Awesome. Okay, so this is the arbiter. Let's take a look at what we've got here. Wow, there's a fair bit going on. So I like that it comes with a nice little picture in this one. That's cute. You can choose your species. I'm just looking down the left. You can choose your look. You can be androgynous. I like that they include that as an option. Yeah, I'm very curious to see in a second like what these connections do as far as rules tweaks. You can choose some of these different things in here. Awesome. So nice stuff going on here. Adds a little bit of flavor text. Your background, where do you call home? I like all these examples that they include. One of my favorite mechanics is choosing from a list. So having to do a lot of this in character creation is fun. Why did you become a vagabond? Good stuff. Whom have you left behind? Adds a nice little story hook. Which faction have you served the most? Mark 2 prestige for the appropriate group. Neat, I like that. And which faction have you earned a special enmity? Okay, and then here's the connections. Protector. I once protected so-and-so from a mortal blow during a fight, and I would do it again. Why? When they're in reach, mark exhaustion to take a blow meant for them. If you do, take +1 on going to weapon moves for the rest of the scene. That's neat. So-and-so and I helped a faction take control of a clearing and share responsibility for it. You each mark 2 prestige with the faction you helped and 2 notoriety for the faction you harmed. If you're spotted together, then any prestige or notoriety gains with those factions are doubled for the 2 of you. That's very cool. I like this. I think it would be neat if there was room for this to grow and improve over the game and like change. But out of the box, this is very cool. I like this a lot. Let's go take a look at the rest of the sheet. So it looks like if you're the arbiter, you're good at charming, and you're very good at might. You get to add a +1 to any of these. You're not very lucky. Curious to see what luck is meant for still. My hunch is gonna be that it's for the thief. Okay, then you choose your nature. Clear your exhaustion track when you defend someone who cannot defend themselves from dire threat. That's cool. I like how narrative these effects are. Like it says, do this thing to get this. Or you can be a punisher. Clear your exhaustion track when you punish a villain for their grievous wrongdoing. My initial hunch is I prefer the defender one because that seems like that would come up more. The punisher one requires that there's a villain to be there, and sometimes that can be tough, but you know, your GM and your game is going to be built around that. So Might be in the advancements. That's a good idea. Let's get to those. Then you have your connections, your drives, your weapon skills. Choose one bolded weapon skill to start. Okay, so that's neat. And then you have your moves. Oh, and you have your reputation at the bottom here too. I really like these character sheets. They're very much in the aesthetic of Root, the board game, and they've done a really phenomenal job of keeping that aesthetic and style. I also feel like it's laid out very nicely. I'm just sort of scrolling up and taking a look at everything. Yeah, very, very neat how they've laid everything out. Okay, let's see. Okay, so you have your moves. Choose 3. Okay, brute. You take +1 to might. Max it out at 3. Okay, I don't love that. +3s empowered by the apocalypse are not my favorite, but that's okay. Carry a big stick. When you trust fate to see you through by relying on strength and force without forethought or planning, roll with might instead of luck. Yeah. Dungeon World had it, and the reason why I'm sort of like iffy on it is because in our group, the ranger just bumped their dexterity to +3, and it was like, okay, well, they're going to succeed on basically everything they do because they just did dexterous things, which I realized, yeah, I don't know. I don't love +3s just because I feel like it shouldn't be a thing that you just can have. I feel like a +3 should require a bit more effort and sort of come in and out as you need it or as you can pay for it. A lot of the Powered by the Apocalypse games have that. Yeah, yep. Monster of the Week, Urban Shadows, and Think Monster Hearts. Yeah, that's true. I was trying to think if there's other Powered by the Apocalypse games that I haven't actually played a whole lot of ones that are fully Powered by the Apocalypse. Dungeon World is the biggest one. Okay. Let's carry on though. And then you've got some other abilities. It looks like these feel very oh, hello Adam Coble. As I mentioned, Dungeon World. Welcome to my stream. I'm blushing over this. Oh, thank you for joining. Yeah, right now I'm just taking a look at Root, the quick start from Magpie Games. I was just talking about some of the math that comes with +3s, and yeah. Otherwise, it looks like they've got their equipment in here. That's kind of cool. And then they've got some other playbooks as well. I think what we'll do is we'll take a quick look through some of these playbooks and see what they're like. I'm curious to see what the other abilities are and some of these other connections. I really enjoy seeing these connections. I kind of want to see what the other mechanical effects are for them. I felt betrayed by something so-and-so once did to me. I won't easily trust them ever again. When you figure them out, you can always ask, are you telling the truth, even on a mess? Ooh, I like that. This is very social for what I was expecting. Protector, I did something that would have gotten me the enmity of a woodland faction. If so-and-so hadn't covered for me, what did I do? Why and how did they protect me? Regardless, I feel indebted to them. When they are in reach, mark exhaustion to take a blow meant for them. If you do, take +1 ongoing to weapon moves for the rest of the scene. Okay, so we actually saw that on the other one. So it seems like they have a little bit of overlap, which is kind of neat. I kind of like the overlap because then there's only so many that you have to keep track of. And then they've got the ranger. Interesting, the ranger is good at cunning, finesse, and might. They don't come with a +2 score unless you bump one up to a +2. So that's neat. You can be a loner, or you can be a cynic. Interesting there. Some moves. Let's see what some of their moves are. So you can choose 3. It's interesting that they give you 3 moves. That's half of the moves that are on here. I'm also curious. I don't think I've gone over yet how they advance, or like what the advancement actually is, but I think we'll get to see that in a bit. Okay. Silent pause. You're adept at slipping into and out of dangerous situations without anyone noticing. You can mark exhaustion to choose. Okay, so neat. They've got some stuff there to help you stealth. Forager. Whenever you travel or pass into a forest, you can clear 1 box of decay by foraging for supplies. Interesting. I don't quite know about the foraging stuff yet because I haven't got there, but imagine that's useful. Let's read this one because it comes with a neat move. Slip away. When you take advantage of an opening to escape from a dangerous situation, roll with finesse. On a hit, you get away. On a 10+, choose 1. On a 7 to 9, choose 2. Interesting. Let's take a look at what's going on in here. The 3 things that we have to choose from. You suffer injury or exhaustion, GM choice during your escape. You end up in another dangerous situation. I like that one. I like the ones that just continue the narrative forward. Or you leave something important behind. On a miss, you escape, but it costs you. Mark injury or exhaustion, the GM's choice, and you leave ample evidence behind for your foes to track and follow you. If you remember correctly, the foraging thing was really strong in Legend of Adventures playthrough. Interesting. I'm curious to see how that works, because I feel like in a very animal folk forest-based game that would come up quite a bit, so I'm curious to see what that's about. Oh, I really like the art for this. That's adorable. Oh my goodness. That is so cute. This is the scoundrel. Okay, I think what I'm going to do for these playbooks is I'm going to take a look. Here it is. This is what I was looking for. I'm just going to briefly look through for interesting things that stand out to me. The scoundrel comes with +2 luck. That's very curious. A character that's based off of luck seems like the character that stands out to me as my first pick for a playbook, so that's neat. I want to read some of these moves. Arsonist. When you wreck something with flagrantly dangerous means, explosive, uncontrolled flame, roll with luck instead of might. That's cool. Oh, interesting. You know what I'm noticing as we're going through this? It doesn't look like there are others that have added moves up to a +3, which I like. We only saw it on that first one for that one attribute, so that's pretty cool. Just jumping back to the discussion earlier. Interesting. Okay, so it looks like so far only one playbook has access to a score of +3. Okay. And then we have the thief here. They're very finessey. Okay, so the thief has one of the scores that lets you bump up to a +3 as well. We have the tinker. Cool. So for the most part, oh, I like this animal. A possum. For the most part, it seems like these playbooks are really creative, and I like all the stuff that they do. I really like that you get 3 moves to start with. That feels like a lot of things to do. Oh, and then we have the basic moves. Okay, so what I'm going to do, rather than go over these basic moves, I'm going to hop back to the quick start guide, and I'm going to go through some more of the things in here and just take a look at what we've got going on. Cool. So playing the game. So it talks about moves. I'm just sort of like skimming a bit. For the most part, in Powered by the Apocalypse games, a move is triggered when X happens, like it says in the second paragraph here. And you are listening during the game for those triggers so that when those things happen, you do the move and go with that. So it looks like they just sort of go with that. The core takeaway to keep in mind right now is this. If a move is triggered, you follow the instructions. Exactly. Awesome. So very core to Powered by the Apocalypse. That's cool. Rolling the dice, 2d6. Very familiar there. It'll say roll with something. That's neat. It looks like you can roll with reputation. I'm guessing that's based off of I think we saw some boxes on the playbooks for that. On a 10 plus, you get a full hit. 7 to 9, a partial hit with costs, complication, or consequences. 6 minus, a miss. The GM tells you what happens. It probably won't be good. Very Powered by the Apocalypse. Awesome. The GM never rolls dice. Instead, they tell you what's happening and respond to the actions your characters take. Again, all very in line with Powered by the Apocalypse, so that's cool. Awesome. Basic moves. Okay, cool. So now it's going to go over the basic moves. Let's take a look at what we can do in this game. First thing I noticed is there's a helper interfere. I think I've seen that before in other ones. Let's see. We can persuade an NPC. When you persuade an NPC with promises or threats, keyword here is you need promises or threats. So you have to have one of those things. You can't just... well, you can demand things of them, but you're doing the threat side of it. If you want to like positively persuade someone, you need those promises there to activate this move. On a 10 plus, they see things your way, provided you give them a strong motive or reasonable bribe. On a 7 to 9, they aren't sure. The GM will tell you what you need to do to sway them. Cool. Figure something out. When you try to figure someone out, rather. When you try to figure someone out, roll with charm. On a 10 plus, hold 3. On a 7 to 9, hold 1. While interacting with them, spend your 1 hold for 1 to ask their player a question. And then we just have a list of questions. This is probably one of my favorite mechanics. I like this. I especially like how powerful the questions can be. The first one here is your character telling the truth? So we have a lie detector. That's an interesting choice. I kind of feel like this question could be a bit more interesting or provoking rather than just yes or no. What is your character really feeling? What does your character intend to do? What does your character wish I do? How could I get your character to so-and-so? Okay, I like the bottom 4. That first one, I would like to see changed a little bit. I would prefer not to have that. Just because it's like, that's yes or no. It's a lie detector. Trick an NPC. When you trick an NPC to get what you want, roll with cunning. On a hit, they take the bait and do what you want. On a 7 to 9, they can instead choose 1. Awesome. This is like the deception-y stuff. Interesting. On a 7 to 9, they choose 1. They hesitate, you shake their confidence or weaken their morale. They stumble, you gain a critical opportunity. They overreact, take +1 forward against them. So they get to choose that. My least favorite Matthew in chat says, my least favorite question, tabletop gaming. I agree. To me, a question of if someone is lying or not should just be a player-to-player question. I like just say if they are, and then if they want to know, then you can deal with it and just say so. I don't like the whole rule for lie detector thing, but anyways. Other move, read a tense situation. When you read a tense situation, roll with cunning. So far, I see charm and cunning are used a lot. And then we're going to have, it looks like finesse, luck, and might have these other roles. But it looks like these pair nicely together, like persuade and figure someone out. Those go together. Trick an NPC and read a tense situation. They sort of pair back with their cunning counterpart or charm counterparts. Interesting. Okay, so when you read a 10 situation, roll with cunning. On a 7 to 9, ask 1. On a 10 plus, ask 3. And then you get to take +1 when acting on the answers. This feels, the way these are arranged all feels very powered by the apocalypse, which is nice. If someone was coming into this game and they were familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse, I think they're going to get a very good idea of what they're getting into, and that's pretty cool. It makes it so easy to hop into this game and makes it very accessible. When you attempt roguish feats, we got that. Trust fate. Let's see what this luck option is. When you trust fate to see you through, roll with luck. On a hit, you scrape by, the GM will tell you what it costs you. On a 10 plus, fortune favors the bold. Your panache earns you an easy escape or fleeting opportunity. Interesting. This luck one seems like the most straightforward of them all. It's interesting because in Powered by the Apocalypse, it's up to the player to determine how risky they want to get. Their odds of success are always the same, based off of the stat. So you can choose the riskiest thing, and then as the GM, you up the consequences as they do more risky stuff. So this move, the Trust Fate one, sort of leans into that. You really want to play this game. Yeah, so far my impression of this game is like I would like to try it out and see how it feels. Especially with the playbooks, they have a lot in there that I would like to dig into. Yeah. And then you have your wreck something and then the helper interfere. I think those are pretty straightforward. When you helper interfere with another vagabond, you mark exhaustion. So there's no roll, you just get to do it. That's interesting. I'm imagining exhaustion is pretty powerful or hurtful to take. Oh, and this is fantastic. They have some notes here. Interesting. I want to see what their notes are for the truth detection. Figure something out. Nope, they don't really address it. That's too bad. Okay, I think this is cool. I like that they have a section here that just adds more detail to the moves. And then we have weapon moves. There's a whole lot going on here. Interesting. So engage sword to sword, grapple an enemy, target someone. So it looks like those are the 3 core ones. Murder. When you try to murder a vulnerable NPC at intimate range, roll with cunning. On a hit, your foe dies. On a 10 plus, you remain hidden or clear a path for your allies, your choice. Interesting. So I guess you have to get that NPC to vulnerable to accomplish that. I think there was some stuff that they talked about in another part of the book where they said that you have to get the attribute and have a weapon that has that attribute and be skilled in it or something. Okay, so it looks like there's a whole bunch of different options for weapons, which is really interesting. I'm just going to take a quick look at, let's read this vicious strike one. When you viciously strike an opponent where they are weak, mark exhaustion and roll with might. On a hit, they suffer serious harm. On a 10 plus, you get away with a strike. On a 7 to 9, they get a shot in as well. Okay, interesting. I'm sort of going to glance over some of the combat stuff just because I want to see what the other parts of it are. I think combat empowered by the apocalypse, it looks like they're just doing it a very similar way to how it's been done before, which is tried and true, so that's cool. Travel moves. Interesting. So let's see what we have here. When you travel from clearing to clearing along the established path, the band collectively marks exhaustion to represent how fast and determinedly they move along the path and rolls. If they, as a group, mark fewer exhaustion than the number of vagabonds of the group, they roll -1. Or plus 0, or if they mark additional exhaustion, they mark +1. On 10 plus, your trip is largely uninterrupted, especially fast. On 7 to 9, you encounter something noteworthy upon the path, signs of an incident or remains of a fight in the larger war. Okay. On a miss, you are embroiled in the middle of a dangerous situation before you arrive. And then there's one for traveling through the forest. I'm guessing this is a bit more dangerous. Okay. And then they talk about reputation moves. Interesting. So these are kind of neat. The travel moves, these are kind of familiar, but they're done in a very different way. I'm just going to quickly pop over to the character sheets and not fix the stream. So it looks like you can take 4 points of exhaustion. So, and exhaustion gets cleared whenever you do your nature. Yeah. Reputation moves. So these reputations, I'm guessing, are based off of how good you are with a faction. It talks a little bit about that here, but what is the actual move? Okay, it looks like there's one here. I feel like this section is a bit difficult to use in play. Like, I want the move to be bolded. In the travel section, they have it bolded, and that's nice. It looks like it is in here, though. When you meet with someone important for the first time, roll with reputation for that faction. On a 10 plus, they've heard only good things and are more likely to ally with you. Take +1 on going to ask them for help, figure them out, or interact with them positively until you betray their trust. Okay, interesting. And then it talks a bit more about the factions. Goes into detail on, so we saw injury, exhaustion, decay, and morale. So these are the 4 things that are a part of the game, and I guess this is sort of your resources that you're going to manage. Let's see. For each track, if a character must mark a box and cannot, they are taken in some way out of the action. A character can never choose to mark a box as an option on a move if they don't actually have an empty box to mark. Okay, so basically once it's filled up, you are taken out of the scene. Interesting. Exhaustion tracks a character's energy, will, and effort. The more boxes checked, the more exhausted they are. Exhaustion clears 1 box every day, and all boxes if a PC gets some rest and care, or if they fulfill the condition of their nature, they immediately clear all the boxes of exhaustion. Injury tracks a character's physical health. The more boxes checked, the more wounded and injured they are. You will pass out or become incapacitated if you have too many. Injury clears when a character receives medical attention or when they rest for an extended time. Okay, it seems like you can't die in this game, which I actually like. This is not a game that I think I would want to see death in. And you don't have to have hit points for that stuff, which is kind of nice. Instead, you have these cool resources that they've come up with. Decay tracks a character's equipment and its durability. That's a very interesting stat to have as a track. Okay, so you have your decay there. I'm just seeing, how do you get it back? Decay clears when you repair equipment or resupply. Okay. And then morale is only used by NPCs. Okay. So if you break an NPC's morale, they either break, they surrender, groveling, begging for mercy, or they bolt. Interesting. This is a neat mechanic. I like the way they've done this. I haven't really played with anything like this except for stress and Blades in the Dark is the most similar one, but it's used in a very different way. This way, I'd be interested to see how it plays out, but my initial impression of it is like, that seems cool. I want to try that out. Equipment, I think I'm going to skip the equipment. They have the playbooks here. Okay, so this is basically what we were looking at earlier. I'm just going to skip over these because we saw them already. Advancement. Awesome. I'm curious to see how this goes because so far my impressions overall are pretty positive. I mean, I have high expectations for Magpie Games, but advancement is sort of the one final thing where I'm like, I want to see how this works and I want to get to know this system because advancement in a game is what drives my characters to do things, and I think if you have good advancement, you can really promote that in a game, and it can also be very core to how your game is played. So let's take a look. Over the course of play, the vagabonds will change and grow. They'll earn prestige with some factions and enmity with others. They will become more skilled and more capable, even as the problems before them become more and more complicated. To represent these changes, the vagabonds can advance through their drives and update their natures, drives, and connections. Advancement. So you advance by following your drive. Each drive lists a condition by which the vagabond can advance. So I'm gonna take a quick peek. I'm not gonna fix the screen. So for the vagrant, one of the examples is when you topple a tier. Oh, there's a typo here. When you topple a tyrannical or dangerously overbearing figure or order, you advance. I like that. I like the anti-capitalism that could ensue and become. Anyways, so when you do those things, ultimately is the GM that is the judge of whether or not the vagabond has met their drive condition, but the player should call the GM's attention when they think they have done that. So you get to choose from the list. Take +1 on a stat up to a max of +2. I really like that. I like that they have capped out at +2. Take a new move from your playbook. You can have up to 5 from your own playbook. Ooh, this is interesting. Take a new move from another playbook, and you can do this twice. That's very cool. Playbooks are nice, but when playbooks allow you to have that option, that sort of like infinite option to just pick anything, that feels very good. You can take up to 2 new weapon skills, max of 8. Add 1 box to any 1 harm track. Looks like you can do as much as you want. Take up to 2 new connections, max of 6 total. Interesting. You cannot take more than 1 advance per drive per session. There's that. Blah, blah, blah. At the end of every session, the group spends some time going over everyone's drives. This is a chance to give credit, blah, blah, if it was missed during the session. Awesome. What is this section here? So they have a section updating vagabonds. Sometimes a vagabond's nature driver connections will stop making sense. Awesome. This is what I'm curious about. A ranger fully satisfies their revenge. Blah, 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 blah. Changing these elements of a vagabond is not a matter of advancement, but it is important that a vagabond's nature drives and connections continue to reflect the state of the fiction. Awesome. At the end of the session, each vagabond may change the choice of one drive, their nature, or one connection. Whenever they change, they replace a new version chosen from any of the options across all the playbooks. So that's very cool. For example, a ranger who fully satisfies their revenge drive would choose a new drive from any playbook to replace it. Awesome. I like that. That's very cool. These two parts together really hit the beats that I was like hoping to see in this, and I think that's pretty cool. Treasure. I think I'm gonna skip through this a little bit quicker. I'm not too concerned with this. I'm curious to see what the different agendas and principles are for the GM. So this was something I really liked when I did Dungeon World. I really liked being able to look at my list of moves and say, which one fits the situation and is going to advance the agendas of the game. So the agendas for the Game Master are to make the woodlands seem large, alive, and real. Awesome. Make the vagabonds' lives adventurous and important. And thirdly, in a very powered by the apocalypse style, play to find out what happens. Describe the principles of this game are describe your world like a living painting. Address yourself to the characters, not the players. Be a fan of the vagabonds. Make your move but misdirect. Sometimes disclaim decision making. That's a big one. Disclaim decision making. Yep. Make the factions and their reach a constant present. Give denizens drives and fears. Follow the ripples of every major action. Remind them of their outcast status. Bring danger to seemingly safe settings. Cool. And then the moves that you can do. Inflict injury, exhaustion, decay, or morale. Reveal an unwelcome truth, so signs of an approaching threat. Capture someone. Put someone in a spot. Disrupt plans and schemes. Make them an offer to get their way. Show them what a faction thinks of them. Turn their move back on them. Activate a downside of their background, reputation, or equipment. After every move, say and ask, what do you do? Cool. And then it looks like they have a section on NPCs. It looks like you can sort of list out the harm tracks, and it has some examples here. I like this. This is very nice. This seems very structured. Oh, cool. So this is the map from the board game. This is very familiar. That's neat. Oh, interesting. So it looks like they have a section here on map creation. And it talks about the dominant communities, the number of paths. Cool. And it just gives some examples. This is very neat. I think for prep reasons, I would just use the pre-made one, but this is cool. Okay, and then they talk a little bit about control of clearings and what that means. Okay, so this is a lot of world stuff. Lots of rolling on tables. Very procedurally generated. You love that the world building is mechanical, it brings you joy. Yeah, that's a very neat thing that they've included. I like that. Interesting. Oh, neat. And then they include important inhabitants, so you can roll on this. This is a very neat table because if you're rolling 2d6, the first thing is that you can get two options to choose from depending on how you read it. Actually, yeah, that's my only insight into this table is you get two options based off of rolling 2d6. Then they have some neat stuff on important buildings. This is very nice because if you weren't familiar with the setting, this adds a lot of value, I think, and it helps throw back to the aesthetic that is basically Redwall that a lot of these animal folk games tend to remind me of. I like that the problems that are listed here, it's like overtaxation. It's like go overthrow whoever's controlling. That sounds fun. There's a coup happening. Censorship. There's a strange mystery. Interesting. And of course, like if any of them don't fit, you can just pick a different one. Oh, I like this. Initial situation generator. You can randomly generate the initial situation for a one-shot or start the campaign by rolling on these tables. This is nice because it's really tough when you're starting a new game to just get the group together and be like, this is the big situation at the start. Having like options is really good. So this is neat. So what are they there to do? Deliver an item, eliminate a threat, raid a group. Very, very much in the theme of the game. Who hired them, targets, threats, groups, complications. Very cool. And then there's war. Interesting. Oh, and this is the last page. So let's take a look at this. Let's dive into how war works. Because at the end of the game, Root is basically about these warring factions. And the war is a very important and big part of this, so let's see what's going on here. To determine how a clearing has been impacted by the war upon encountering it, roll 2d6 plus each faction either controlling or neighboring the clearing. Okay, on a 2 to 7, it's untouched. On a 8 to 10, it's battle scarred, occupied, and then there's fortified on 13 plus. Time passing. Sometimes during play, the GM will say that time skips forward. This can happen during long-term travel, or if the vagabond decides to stay in a clearing and rest for a while. When time passes, the war continues on. Roll for each faction, starting with the faction with the most controlled clearings and working down. +1 if that faction doesn't have control of the most clearings in the wood, blah, 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 blah. So we've got some modifiers. And then here's the move. On a 10 plus, the faction has a major victory, choose 2, or a minor victory, choose 1, and then it goes and talks about some of these things. This is cool because it's going to have a pretty dynamic flow to it. As far as like changing powers, I think this is neat. This is nice because you, as a GM, for those bigger picture things, it's very hard to just decide what you want. Having mechanics that will take care of that is nice. And like, if you don't like it, you can always change it. But when it comes to these roles, you're basically always going to have some way. It's like, oh, how this is tough to do, but there's an interesting way that this change of power can happen. So that's kind of neat. Gonna use this for the war and Ghost in the Machine. It's pretty cool. I'm trying to think of when I saw something like this earlier. Off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of any. I know like Dungeon World uses fronts, which I really enjoyed. That was a nice mechanic. I think I would actually almost pair these potentially with fronts to see how that goes. And then Blades in the Dark has the faction clocks, which are interesting. I think these like bigger picture ones are very good when you're trying to convey a nice living and active world. I also enjoy that it adds a little bit of a bit of a difference to the story, where the players and the group knows that like this war is going on based off of these rules, and not just how the GM is deciding. Like the GM is going to decide which moves they're going to pick and stuff like that, but it's cool in that sense. Awesome. That's cool. Okay, let's scroll back to the top. So overall, I am pretty impressed. I have pretty high standards for Magpie Games. I think that they've really picked up a system, the Powered by the Apocalypse system, and done a really good implementation of it. They've kept a lot of the core principles there that I like to see in Powered by the Apocalypse. They addressed my biggest concern, which was having +3s. They made it a special ability that only some people get, and that's cool. I would like to see if they include magic in this game at all. My impression is that it doesn't fit into the setting, so I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like if they did do that, it would be a bit tough to include it so nicely in the rest of the stuff. This one feels like a very to do a lot of the principles of the game and sort of give it that like vagabond lifestyle. I think having heroic but mundane characters, non-magical rather, it fits well. I would like to try this game out. I think I would have a lot of fun with it. I would like to see how the connections work together. I especially liked that they added mechanical benefits to it. I like that those change just at the end of a session whenever you want. That feels nice. Overall, I like the aesthetic. And yeah, I would definitely be up to try this out, play it for a bit, and go from there. And with that, I think we'll wrap up. I don't know what I'm going to review next, but I will keep... I've got a list of games, and I'm going to keep adding to that, and hopefully I'll get to review some more games in the future. Thank you for all of those who tuned in. It looks like there's a handful of you. If you did tune in, please follow, because I'm going to do more game reviews on my channel. I'm also posting them to YouTube, or if you're interested, on Twitter. I will always post when I'm about to go live or release one on YouTube. And that helps me out with reach and influence and that kind of stuff. And yeah, thank you so much everyone for tuning in, and enjoy your holidays. It's Christmas Eve, so Merry Christmas if you're celebrating, and have a good night.